Times, David Simon, the creator of The Wire, and my boss on Treme.
Briefly. Too briefly.
It's been 40 years since Nixon declared war on drugs.
Public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse.
David Carr, as you described at length in your harrowing memoir, your drug of choice was crack cocaine. My drug of choice for many years was heroin. All of these years later, 40 years of drug war, would either of us have difficulty anywhere in the United States finding our former drug of choice within 45 minutes?
I think you and I could walk out of here and within about 90 seconds of yelling, looking, at least someone would come toward us, and probably somewhere within 5 minutes of that, probably west of here, we'd both be able to take care of whatever we needed.
And from what I'm reading and what I'm hearing, that would be just as true in South Bend, Indiana, Portland, Maine, or just about anywhere in the United States.
In fact, it's more true than ever that the spread of drugs to rural areas, both opiates and crystal meth, has been, I mean, it's gone very viral. This used to be something, if you want to develop the kind of hobby that you had or I had, we'd have to go to a big place. Now you can sit in Mayberry and the drugs will come to you.
And look, half the world's incarcerated people, half of the total prison population of the world, are allegedly in jail for nonviolent drug-related purposes. We surely haven't skimped in the locking people up department. All these years later, who's winning this war, David Simon, and who are the casualties of this war? You suggested that it is, in fact, a class war rather than a drug war.
Yeah, there are a lot of losers. I mean, you know, we're paying for it, society as a whole. Certainly the underclass, people of color, particularly in this country, are the chow that are being chewed up by this war. I think the only people who are winning right now are those select stockholders and officers of those companies that have created a for-profit prison industry that actually, you know, has figured out a way to monetize this. And worse than that, they're taking their profits and they're lobbying legislatures to become even more draconian. And if it was draconian and it worked, you could have sort of an intelligent conversation about whether it was worth it or not to destroy this many lives for a policy goal. But it's draconian and it doesn't work. The drugs are pure. They're available in far more places. It's astonishing how much failure you can build into 40 years and still keep going.
What about decriminalizing them? Just give it up and say, look, wars. Let's declare the war over and attack this from a treatment situation.
Just ignore them. I mean, in the sense of stop locking people up. I'm not particularly interested in watching whatever misadventure would be an attempt to legislatively legalize drugs. I mean, you can imagine the astonishing stupidity that would happen as that wound its way through state legislatures or even the U.S. Congress. But if you just stop doing more damage and you put the money to other things to try to reintegrate one America with the other economically, I mean, just throw it at job training, you couldn't do much more damage than you're doing right now and achieve so little. So the idea of actually having an argument about the law is almost futile in this kind of, you know, don't be anything but negative on drugs.
In The Wire Season 3, a police commander declares a de facto moratorium on enforcing drug laws in Baltimore. He calls this free fire zone Amsterdam. So, David Carr, what do you think, if we had actual Amsterdams, what would America look like? Or do we have them already?
Part of the problem is that drug addiction tends to be a serial matter, and it's not easy to fix. And people say treatment doesn't work, and in fact, it doesn't. I went to treatment 4 times and went back and used. And then somehow, magic number 5, I sobered up. I got lucky, I hit the jackpot, and I've been paying taxes ever since, raising kids, going to school board meetings, sitting in church like a normal human being. The money that got sunk into me back in the day has been paid back. You can argue about the importance or efficacy of the work that I do, but it's better than what I used to be up to. And I do think that for people to say that that incarceration is any kind of fix, that it does anything other than manufacture rage and market a feeling of hopelessness among a huge class. I mean, I think it's interesting who gets locked up. You and I had fairly good careers doing what we did. I went to jail, but I never went to prison.
Yep.
I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm a white person.
Nor I.
You know, this drug war has gone on as long as it has because it's targeted people of color. If they were locking up white folk at the rate that they've been locking up people in this country, it would have ended a long time ago. And in fact, one of the reasons you've started to see opposition to the drug war start coalescing is things like the sentencing guidelines and the fact that, you know, with methamphetamine, as David says, in the West, and, you know, you're starting to see white folk getting locked up. But what I was concerned about, and what I am concerned about, is that if they could somehow take that portion of the drug war that is the most sort of easily rationalized and that deals with white middle-class kids. You know, it's not that they're the only ones smoking weed, but if they could actually get that part out of the equation, they might go on with this dystopic policy for another 40 years, chewing up people of color. So,
but they will.
Well,
surely.
And that's what I'm worried about.
They
will.
know,
you let those people off the hook, and it's like the draft. It's like, you know, they got rid of the draft, and now we can fight wars of choice wherever we want to. You know, you get marijuana out of the drug war, and they'll brutalize the inner cities for another 2-3 generations. And so I'm really down on the idea of not treating this holistically and systemically and saying, what are we doing with drug prohibition?
Bummer. I don't see it ever. I don't see anyone running for office in the United States anytime soon standing up and saying, I'm for the decriminalization of heroin or cocaine. No one will have the courage to ever do it.
I do agree that there is no political percentage in talking about legalization, but the idea of decriminalization, the idea of, you know what? I mean, let me tell you something. I'm from Baltimore, right? We got a little bit of a crime problem in my city. And when they started locking up people for drugs at a higher rate, the clearance rates, the arrest rates for all major felonies, for murder, for rape, for robbery, they all went down. They stopped locking people. You know, we taught a whole generation of police how not to do police work. They'd go in your pockets and get dope. They couldn't do police work. And that's what we've created, is we've actually harmed our ability to police ourselves by wasting our time on this. And that's the great tragedy, is if you could somehow focus the idea of, you know what, we're just not going to pay attention. We're going to use the resources for something better. You might have a shot.
When we come back, we're going to turn to the NSA's hijinks, and I want to know if you two have a problem with the government looking over our shoulders.